Morning, everybody. Great to see so many people here, and thank you very much for the very strong response that we got to the survey that, as Declan was saying, was issued on the 22nd of the month. We had, sorry, just to move through. As Declan was saying, we had 123 responses from across the public service, which was very strong in the 5 working days that people were given to get back to us. So there was broad representation from across the public service, including 10 government departments, revenue commissioners, houses of the Oireachtas, various state agencies, a number of regulators, CSO, IPA. So this gives us an opportunity to just get a quick kind of snapshot in what is still really the early stages of the public service response to the COVID-19 crisis. And we decided to do this as part of the action team in order to help frame this meeting today, to give us an insight into how organisations have responded to the challenges and what issues have come up and what innovations have happened. So we're going to give you a quick snapshot of what we've heard through the responses. So there were 10 survey questions. I know a number of the attendees listening here today will have filled out the surveys, others won't have, so I'll just take you through those questions quickly. What we were interested in was to see how many of our service channels have continued to fully function during the crisis. When did organisations close and normal operations? Are our organisations providing alternative modes of communication to service delivery during this time? We asked organisations to outline any changes in service delivery demand. We were interested to see if there'd been any upskilling or training in this immediate period in responding to the crisis, where there had been difficulties by citizens in accessing services, where that might have been, what kind of issues might citizens, customers be encountering, if there's any other difficulties encountered, what staff working patterns, how our people have responded in terms of continuing to deliver the service while working remotely. Has there been a change to organisations' overall approach to customer service during the period of the crisis? And then if there was any other issues that people wish to raise, that there was an opportunity to do so. So I'll take you through the first couple of questions and responses we got, and then I'll hand over to Caroline, who will take us through the rest of the responses. So in terms of the overall service channels that organisations offer, we wanted to know, have these channels been fully functioning during the crisis? And the responses you would anticipate was that there was a greater emphasis on certain service delivery channels, most particularly email. Now, we set the question out. There was 5 possible answers: yes, no, partial emergencies, not usually offered remote. So if you take the yes and remote as kind of one, you can see that almost 100% of organisations were operating on email. Where there was online service available through that organisation, that was very strongly used. Where possible, phone was used. There's different ways of managing in different organisations, but those are the main takeaways from that particular question. In terms of when normal operations ceased, it varied across organisations. Some organisations transitioned from the 12th of March, others from up to the 3rd of April, and there are some exceptions. Some organisations are continuing to offer their services as usual. In terms of customer service, when you think back to the Quality Customer Service Initiative principles, our customer is both the internal customer and the external customer. So while the citizen is our external customer, we are one another's internal customer. So how we communicate with one another within our divisions, within our organisations, between our organisations is relevant to this question. And in terms of, I think we all have experienced, and here we are today with WebEx, new ways of communicating. So Citrix system has been used in many government departments, video conferencing, virtual meetings using Zoom, webinars such as this. In some cases, in terms of the external customer, organisations have diverted phone lines to people's work mobile phones. There's been particular helplines set up in particular departments. There's been online applications introduced in some organisations. Overall, what we're seeing is more intense use of existing modes of communication, in particular expansion of email services, greater use of web and social media, an increased number of online information publications, such as frequently asked questions. So over to Caroline.
Okay, hi everyone, hope you can hear me. So just in terms of changes in how customers are contacting our public service organisations, perhaps not very surprising, there's a no walk-in service for almost all organisations. Big increase in volume of emails, which was just covered by Grace. And some organisations or some services are doing email only. So in some cases, no phone service is possible for some at the moment. And a lot of online submission of applications, and that is probably connected to the increased amount of applications that are online as well. The call centres, as mentioned, social protection and agriculture in particular. And an organisation example here is the IPA, where they've moved their exams online and they have launched an online training brochure. So for a number of services, they already dealt very heavily with electronic correspondence, but for all organisations that have been doing it since, the volume was much higher initially in the first few weeks of the crisis. And we have the graph here on upskilling and training required or offered. That's pretty self-explanatory. So most people that were surveyed have offered or received training. So if we go on to the next slide. So difficulties in accessing services by any sectors of society. So email service only is problematic for some, particularly elderly customers who prefer face-to-face and may not have a computer or quality broadband. But many report little or no difficulties in services being accessed by any sectors of society. And here we have social protection, where there's good engagement with community and the voluntary sector, where translations and interpretation services are running as usual, but with video conferencing options now as well. So the next slide. So other difficulties and remedies, I won't go through them all, you can see them there, but an organisation example is the Passport Office, where difficulties identifying genuine emergencies from hundreds of contacts was overcome by establishing a process of triage and escalation. So in terms of changes in staff attendance and working hours, remote working has obviously been a very prominent feature for most of us. And the vast majority of staff have adjusted to this quite well, although many of us are working around childcare and family commitments, and flexibility is necessary there. And there have been some challenges that have already been overcome or are in the process of being addressed, and they relate to a small minority that have had no remote access, and some challenges in providing an effective service to the public while working remotely. So I'll hand you back over to Grace.
Thanks, Caroline, that's great. So taking all the 123 surveys into consideration and looking at the trends that we saw across each of the questions, there's kind of three main themes that emerge. Those organisations that already had digitalisation plans in place, strategies in place, either they were fully in place or they were working through them, they were in strong positions to transition quickly to this new way of working. And it was definitely seen and recognised by those organisations as being key to their ability to be agile and to turn around quickly to meet the new reality and the new citizen demands and expectations. Those areas of organisations that are still using a lot of paper-based processes, it took a little bit more time to continue to deliver the service. So the key message is embracing technology, and the survey respondents themselves were highlighting the need to move towards digitisation, greater digitisation of files, offer more online services, use online portals for service delivery, automate more processing, more direct communications over email and phone, further use of webinars. So respondents in general could see the value of the technical solutions. The other theme that came out very strongly through the surveys is that our people may be our best asset. It was noted that under a crisis, people can adapt and learn and work in new ways quickly, and that this agility has helped our organisations at a time of great need in responding to the needs of our citizens. And in conclusion, looking across the surveys, we could say at this stage that it is possible to maintain customer service remotely with the built-in flexibility that we have. And one point that was made in a number of the surveys, in particular, is that young and recent recruits, in particular, who've recently joined our organisations, have been noted and credited, in particular, for their innovative approach and their new ideas to bring challenge and their solutions-based approach to the issues that we've been encountering. So that's the insight from our quick review of the surveys. Over to you, Declan.